What's up, JetNation? Greenbean coming to you from the Coachella Valley in California. And what am I doing out here in the desert, you ask? Thinking about Avery Williamson, of course. We're going to take a look at his stats versus the stats of CJ Mosley. And we're going to talk about whether the Jets should keep him or not. When On the Road with Greenbean comes back.
All right, Jet Nation, we are back inside, out of the desert. My face is getting all sunburned and windburned out there. It's hot. It's hot in the desert. You know, you hear stories. You hear stories about the desert, but when you're out there, you think to yourself, yeah, it's hot out here. So anyway, here I am. I'm back inside, and I wanted to talk to you about Avery Williamson. There is a lot of people, a lot of Jets fans right now are talking about trading and or just flat out cutting Avery Williamson. So I believe it's that his contract is about $8.5 million this year if we keep him. If we decide to cut him, we regain $6.5 million of that cap. So there's a $2 million dead cap hit, which is, you know, we still gain 6.5. So a lot of people are thinking that the 6.5 million is worth more than the product that Avery Williamson brings to us, conversely, everybody's all excited about CJ Mosley and what he can bring to the Jets. Now, I will add that, before I get moving, that it's one of the biggest disappointments of 2019. As far as, we had, question marks with our cornerbacks. We had a new defensive lineman. What was Leo going to do? We had all this kind of stuff going on. But one thing that most Jets fans felt pretty good about was the middle of our defense. CJ Mosley and Avery Williamson were going to lock it down. And we never got to see one play of that except for preseason stuff, but which is just so sad. I mean, out of a season, an entire season of disappointments, that has to be one that's way up near the top. And for me, it's certainly top three. So now we have people excited about CJ Mosley on one hand, if he comes back healthy, and on the other hand, we're like, Avery Williamson, we could take him or leave him. So I wanted to take a look at their numbers and see what it is that we're actually so excited about or so willing to give away. So let's do something. Now, we signed CJ Mosley after the 2018 campaign, right? So we signed him for the 2019 season. So in 2018, CJ Mosley played 15 games. He missed one game. Not too bad. He played 876 snaps. He had 0.5 sacks. 105 total tackles, 70 of which were solo. So 70 solo tackles out of 105 tackles. He had one interception and forced fumbles, okay? Not a bad year, but a year where I don't know if paying him $17 million was the response to that. And in 2017, he played 16 games, had 1,078 snaps, one sack, 133 tackles, 97 solos. So we had a better 2017, 2 interceptions and 3 forced fumbles. That's a good year, right? So now let's look at Avery Williamson. Let's look at his 2018. So in 2018, Avery Williamson didn't miss any games. He played 16 games for the Jets. He played 1,115 snaps, 2.5 sacks, 121 tackles, 79 of which were solo. He had an interception and 2 forced fumbles. So when you compare that stat line to CJ Mosley's 2018, they're the same player. I mean, look, CJ Mosley had half a sack. Avery Williamson had 2.5 sacks. They're in the same ballpark. Obviously, 2.5 is better than 1, but they're in the same bottom tier of sacks. 121 tackles for Avery and 105 tackles for CJ Mosley. We had 79 solo tackles for Avery. We had 70 solo tackles for CJ Mosley. Now, granted, 70 out of 105 is a better percentage, sure, but it's still the same production. They both had 1 interception. Avery Williamson had 2 forced fumbles, and as I said, CJ Mosley had 0. So when we're talking about top tier linebackers, when we're really talking about guys that you want to retain and or let go, when you're making these tough decisions, let me ask you a question. Would you sign a guy for $6.5 million that gave the production that Avery Williamson did the last time that he actually played for us? Would you do it? It's a big question. And when you're talking about CJ Mosley, in comparison, if you have to pick one, I know his contract kind of makes it almost impossible to do anything with him. Nobody's going to want to accept a trade or anything like that with CJ Mosley, but the truth is they don't want to trade him. They love him. You want to know why? Because he's good. But guess who else is good? Avery Williamson. Now, the big knock on keeping these guys together, this is what I hear constantly. I don't want to designate that much cap to the middle linebacker position. Is that unfounded? Probably not. It's one of those less impactful. It's one of the less. What's the word I'm looking for? I kind of fried out there. It's on a premier position. You got the outside pass rushing linebackers. You have safety, right? Now you have the cornerbacks. Things like that on the defense. People look at middle linebacker as as not as important of a position. So having two premier players there when we don't even really have an outside linebacker on the right side, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Jenkins on the left hand side, people don't want to put that much money into the middle linebacker position. But what I would say is, do you not remember Dick Butkus, Urlacher, Ray Lewis, Kyle Clifton, Marvin Jones, Brian Cox, those kinds of guys, Zach Thomas? These guys, that defense was mean, and having the center of the field taken care of can be a huge asset. I'm not so sure that $6.5 million gain is worth losing a player like Avery Williamson. Now, am I sure that it's not worth it? I don't know. I'm not sure it is worth it. I'm not sure it's not worth it. What I want to do is hear what you guys have to think. Comment below. Come on out to JetNation.com. Tell us what you think. Is Avery Williamson worth the $6.5 million that we would recoup if we were to cut him? Do you think he's going to net anything of value in a trade? Either way, we got two monster linebackers coming back as it stands now. It's going to be pretty good for the Jets. All right, buds, go to JetNation.com. Go Jets.